On this episode,
AI will never create what an artisan will create. I just feel like I need to talk about it, share what I can. Oh my God. How could you ask me that? I really enjoy my GP work. I really enjoy everything I do at the bookshop.
welcome to Another Chapter podcast with your hosts, Claire and Rebecca. Welcome to Season 4, Chapter 3 of Another Chapter, the podcast. And today we're joined by someone who wears many hats and wears them all quite brilliantly. So by profession, she is a GP, caring for families in the community, and by passion, she's the owner of a children's bookshop that champions stories for every child. She's also a very powerful online voice for social justice and sparks conversations that truly matter. We cannot wait to talk to her about the connections between books, health and community, and hear how she balances medicine with a love of literature. So please welcome Dr Christina McDonnell, GP and CEO of Genius Juniors Bookshop, to Another Chapter. So you're very welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a lovely intro. I might borrow that.
We'll send it on to you.
Thank you so much.
And
Lovely to
I
be here.
suppose, like Claire said, like when we were discussing who we might ask to come on this season, I think we were surprised actually we hadn't asked you earlier, previously, because like that you are like us, you're a working mom, you have what most readers dream of, your own bookshop, and the fact you did that while working as a GP, which is one of, if not the most important job there is absolutely mind-blowing. So we are in awe.
I have an addiction to children's books, and I think I covered it up having a shop. So I never had an intention of owning a bookshop ever. It was never on my radar at all. But I suppose it started as a charity initiative a few years ago, kind of during COVID times, and I was on maternity leave, and so it got to the stage where I'd like to be doing something, but also didn't want to go back to full-time work, and my girl is very small, so I just stumbled across a box of books online that you could begin kind of a small kind of business, but I didn't want to keep the profits of it, so I just said I'll donate them permanent on Chapel Street, and that was meant to be for 2 weeks, but then I suppose there was a huge demand for it. People really liked the idea of it, and it ran on and ran on and ran on up until nearly 2 years, and at that point then I suppose it had expanded to the point that I had to move it out of my house to a warehouse and take on staff, so it became a business at that point. And now I suppose we're at the next stage of moving it into a brick and mortar shop. So I feel like this is my chapter 3.
This is amazing. Like, what an achievement, really. Just a side hustle going large. And how do you balance it all? So you're a GP and the bookshop owner. So like, how do you manage all of this?
I suppose I'm always on the go. I don't really take a lot of time for myself, which I probably should take more. To be honest, I spend the vast majority of my time with my children, and they're my priority. So it might appear that I'm non-stop in the shop or non-stop on GP, but really I'm there for every drop off, I'm there for every collection. I spend the evenings with them. I used to get them all summer, so I make it work around that. I pick up shifts when my other half is off, GP wise, or I do a lot. Because the bookshop is online currently, I do a lot of that at night time when the kids are in bed. That's what the beauty of it being open 24 hours. I can create a lot of content and do, put in my orders and everything and have that happen in the background during the day. And then GP work is quite flexible as well, and mostly locum at the moment while my kids are small, before I can settle into a more permanent position when they're a little bit older.
That's really nice. Do you know, it's lovely that you have that flexibility in your job as well.
Yeah, I like doing a bit of everything. I'm always afraid of getting stuck into something that I'm tired of. And I really enjoy my GP work. I really enjoy everything I do at the bookshop, and I obviously really enjoy my time with my children. So I feel like I have a really good balance going on. I could maybe taper it back a little bit, but things are just ramped up with the shop and everything at the moment. So it's a busy time, but I'd rather be busy.
And what made you decide to move into the bricks and mortar shop? Because that's a relatively recent addition.
Yeah, good question. It has been something in my mind for a long time. If I look back through my camera roll, I've photos of the units around Ennis available shop over the last 2 or 3 years. So it's always been there. And then I suppose I feel like we deserve it at this point. I feel like Genius Junior is established enough that we kind of deserve more of a presence. Like, you were in a warehouse, kind of more outside the town, and I've never done any advertising locally whatsoever. Most of our customers are actually based in Cork and Dublin, and the vast majority of people in Clare don't know that we're here at all. So I just said kind of make our mark on the town and let people know that we're here. I think that I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like it will lend itself to me pulling back in some ways, and from what I do in the business currently, that it will, there'll be somebody here full time at all times creating content. Like, that will just create a nicer level of content online. I think people will see more of what's happening than currently in the warehouse, where we're kind of a little bit more hit and miss.
Absolutely. And actually, just while you were saying it there, like, it occurred to me that I'm not aware of any other bookshop which is just for kids. There possibly is more around, but like, I'm not aware of any more.
But I believe there are 2 others in the country.
Wow.
And they're both in Wicklow. So we are, I often say, we're the only children's book for 31 counties of Ireland. Yeah, it's amazing. I can't understand it myself, to be honest, because, we have enough book to fill this shop and more. Like, that's my concern for it, I suppose. It's like, will we have enough retail space to show all of the beautiful books that are available? And, it'll be a lot of, I suppose, rotating what we're displaying. And so I do not know how bookshops operate with both adult and children's books. Well, they have a much smaller selection.
Have to, and I suppose they're being a lot, like, pickier maybe isn't the right word, but they're having to be very ruthless, I suppose, with what they choose to put out as well, which isn't ideal either. Yeah.
I suppose I have to be honest to myself, and my passion lies with children's books. I feel like I haven't reached my love of adult book era, which is probably a shocking revelation, but I don't really find time for reading much myself. I'm like, I spend my time reading my children's books with my children, and then like working on the business when they're asleep. So it's not something I've leaned into yet, but I know what's coming in the future.
And all in good time.
And how do you find... Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying all in good time. That will come too. So
yeah. I think you go through seasons in your life, don't you? I feel like I'm missing a lot of events that are on at the moment, like a lot of book launches. There's like O'Brien are doing their autumn kind of gathering, and they're doing every season, and I can't go to it again this season. I just, when your kids are small, you kind of miss out on those kind of things. But I'm very aware that it's a pleasure to be at this stage of my life as well, and that I'll have more time in the future, and I'll probably be sad that they're all grown up.
I know. That's all ahead of us, isn't it?
Which is very sad.
So, can you just talk a little bit about, like, so you're really passionate about kids' books and you love reading kids' books to your children and stuff. How do you think that books and stories contribute to, like, mental well-being and resilience in kids?
I think number one, I suppose, the change in children's books and how they're written these days. When I think back to my own childhood and the books that I read, they weren't designed to support me through various life situations that I might face. Whereas the books these days, many of them are, they're created with that in mind. Like, how are we going to create this children's book about, an anxious situation, and how a child might find their way through that. I think it's really helpful for any child to be, an experience that they're having mirrored in a book, and to recognize that they're not alone, and it's supposed to see how that character manages this situation and the outcome. I always say there's a book for everything, every situation, and I find that's, I suppose, something we pride ourselves in Genius Juniors. The parents come to us a lot, and they might say, "Oh, my child's having an issue with toilet training, it's not going well, like, would you have any books to recommend on that situation?" So there's books on everything, and I think it can prepare children in advance so much as well. Huge selection on bereavement, and I'm always encouraging parents to please buy those books in advance, if possible, of that becoming an issue in their life, because it's inevitable for all of us that we're going to experience. The children are going to experience that, hopefully later rather than sooner, but to become aware through a book that you can experience loss and that it's a really hard thing, and how to take steps to get through that, I think is really helpful as well. I think a lot of books as well, there's a common strong theme of being yourself, and it being okay to be yourself, and it being a wonderful thing to be different. And my own daughter speaks about that a lot. It's like, I'm wearing this and I love to be different. And she's got that from books, like that it's such an encouraging, empowering thing. But I think in all those ways, I think we kind of maybe we've seen issues or things that we lack in our own generation, and moving forward, we're trying to create a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, and I would agree. I see that now with my eldest child. I have two little boys, and the eldest is 4. So I can see with him, like, we read a load of books before my second child came along, and even just around like big feelings and coping with changes and big emotions and stuff, and he finds them so helpful. And as you say, like, we didn't have that. We were just told, you're grand, get on with it, this is all part of life. So it is lovely to see that people recognize that gap in storytelling and just developing empathy and stuff for kids, and have run with it.
Yeah, and as a result of us not having that, I suppose maybe we're not equipped with the tools ourselves to help our own children through certain situations. So like if a child is going to experience a bereavement, or if it's they're anxious or something happening in their life and they need to be helped through, a book is a very good way to do that. Like an example of a new sibling coming along, Toby and the Tricky Thing, the Nosy Crow book, it's a really nice picture book, and I suppose it's just the little boy is kind of struggling with things, and he doesn't have help on hand to help him through them because the mom is busy with the new baby. So a very relatable situation, I'd say, for a new sibling. But in the end, she reminds him that you'll always be my baby. And I think that's just what the child wants to hear. But you might not necessarily have the words for that. When you're caught up in the craziness of a new baby, you might just not recognize that your other little person is trying to manage all these things by themselves, and previously they had your help to do all those things. But I just think sometimes they're a really good reminder to us as well.
Yeah. And I love the Nosy Crow books, actually. They all have a QR code on them, don't they? And you can play them as an audiobook. And they've got little dings to turn the page. I think that's class.
I never use them myself, but they're really popular. They're really popular, I suppose, in the sense that a child can read independently, or if they're at the stage where they're learning to read independently, it might encourage them to keep going with that.
Yeah, we do that now in the car if we're going on a long spin, and it's just great because you can just hear him turning the page in the background, and he's like, oh, yeah, loves it.
That's a good idea for the car. We use kind of CDs, audio CDs sometimes for stories, but I ought to do it with the book. So yeah, good one.
But just what you were saying there, Christina, I definitely feel, and I've seen this said online as well, like we're the generation that are learning to do things ourselves while also trying to teach our kids how to do them or deal with them. And it can be so hard. So even as a parent, to just like you were saying, have a book that can put it into such simple terms, even for us, and the relief of knowing that we can have those discussions on a really accessible level for the kids is wonderful. It's great. And is there any particular book, we'll say, be it, I know you've mentioned that one there, and I actually took note of it because my brother-in-law had a baby there lately, and they have an older girl as well.
That Toby and the Tricky Thing, that doesn't sound like a new baby, but when I ordered it and read it, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Anyway, we sold a million of things, and we always bring them to the baby fair. We go to it twice a year, and they're so popular. And so they're a certain thing, just
excellent. Like, yeah. Is there anyone that came out kind of lately, we'll say, that you've read that maybe like people wouldn't be aware of, that you're like, oh, can everyone please like buy this book for their kids?
Well, the first thought into my head there now is not in terms of like mental well-being or mental benefits or anything like that, but I'm really excited for the night before Christmas in what's it called? We're making it up now. I'm making it up as the night before Christmas. That one. The Night After Christmas in Wonderland was out last year, and The Night After Christmas in Neverland is out this year. So it's a brand new release. We should have them next week. Cool. But I have my own copy of it, and we've been reading it inside out. So there's always like a few Christmas books that people just get really excited about. And any book that every child should have, I put The Invisible String is their best-selling book ever, I would say.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. I'm Not Very Afraid of Being Alone is an Osborne book, and that's kind of a step up from The Invisible String, a little bit more text and a little bit more of a story to it. And that it's like a little girl, she's in the house with her dad, and she's flying away, totally distracted, totally happy and at peace, and then like she looked up, she's like, he's gone, and then she's like, panic, where is he gone? And he's just in another room. So I suppose, again, very relatable situation for most children, that you could be without a parent, but at school, you just for starting school, that kind of thing. But then the reassurance at the end is that I'm always there. I'm not physically in the room sometimes. There's always somebody there at your beck and call, so you need help or you need anything. So I think that's a really good book as well.
What's the name of that one again?
I'm Not Very Afraid of Being Alone.
Okay, I'm jotting this one down. That's my eldest fella's latest saying, I don't want to be on my own, Mommy. And I'm like, but we're here. We're right there.
I know. And it sounds mad until you experience it,
Yeah.
And God, my little fellow would be like that a lot. You know, if I went upstairs for a minute, he'd lose his mind. Just like, what? Yeah. Anyway, at the end of the string, probably a good place to start for maybe 2 to 4 to 5. And then that book, maybe I'd say from 3 if they've got a good understanding of books, or 4 and then above. It all depends on your exposure, more so than the age.
Yes. And is there any children's book that you particularly don't like? I know that's a really hard question, but...
No, I suppose I really respect the art of illustration. I wish I could draw. I have lots of friends who are illustrators, and the artwork in a book is 50% of the experience of the book, in my opinion. I don't know, Ava and the Acorn by Lou Fraser and Paddy Donnelly. Like, that book is just a work of art. Every page of the book beautifully illustrated. We're big fans of Paddy Donnelly and Genius Juniors. But the wording is so... that was my favourite book of 2024. It's unbelievable. But like, I just think there's no comparison. And I suppose I have friends as well who are self-published authors, and I see how much work they put in. And I suppose everyone wants to be an author. People tell me all the time, I'd love to write a children's book. And I think, yeah, but you have to put in the time. Like, if you don't work really hard on that all the time, you're not living and breathing it and like writing drafts and drafts and drafts. And I don't know if you deserve to have a children's book. That's probably a harsh statement, but I'm just saying that from my own perspective. But I'd love to have a book, but like, unless I'm willing to put in the time, I don't deserve it. So I just think AI, I don't know, I think we're a dangerous territory, and the artwork's not the same. Obviously, AI will never be able to create what an artist will create. So yeah, I suppose that's an immediate no for me from that book. And I feel really bad because the wrote it, a fabulous lady, and I mean, budget comes into it as well. It's expensive to hire an illustrator. Maybe, you know, she wanted to just try her hand at it first and see would the book be a success and then go the next step. But again, I suppose you have to decide, do I really want to write this book? Am I willing to invest in an illustrator? Am I going to take the gamble on that? And if you're not, then don't do it.
Yeah, I actually saw a reel this morning on Instagram of a woman whose mother bought her kids a book about hamsters because they love hamsters, and the illustration was by hand, but the story itself was AI, and the vocabulary and just the flow of the story. She put up a couple of screenshots of it. It was totally off. Like, it just made no sense. Like, there were words in there that my third years and yours, Rebecca, would not understand. And I was going, how is this after passing any kind of editing, or, do you know?
Yeah. I know, I saw a series recently as well. It's like, you know, Tom starts school, Issa starts school, so you can have your child's name personalised in the story. Obviously, for easy to create that, ChatGPT, can you create a book about Issa starting school and call it Issa Start School? And I spit that out, and people will buy it. There is a certain niche group of people who will buy it, and they will sell it, not fine. But I suppose if you are privileged enough to make yourself part of the children's book world, then I think that is not part of it. I think I can wrote off a whole category of books there instead of picking one. Like,
but I don't think like it's ever a category that people will be actively looking for. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one is going out to buy a book going, I'd love a book now that was written by AI or illustrated by AI.
I think
or both,
highlighted, and like
both.
the lady was very clear about it. Like, what I wasn't guessing, she made it very clear. She was thankful to AI. It was written on her credits at the end. So I suppose she just hasn't been in the book world enough to know that that isn't the way to go with it. And just another category of books, I suppose. I suppose authors. I keep saying, I suppose authors come into it as well. David Walliams and J.K. Rowling will be two very controversial authors at the moment. Now, we have stock of some of their books. We probably won't be restocking them. But, you know, David Walliams, I was reading Boogie Bear. It's a picture book of his, and I was reading it to my little, almost 3-year-old in the car the other day, and I was like, sure, what harm? A picture book about a bear, like, can't be any harm in it. But the words were just, you know, he's very into fat and heavy, and just, the eyes cracked because he had eaten too much for lunch that day. And I'm like, oh, please. But building that kind of, you know, wording into a children's picture book. I don't know how so many, I'm sure you've seen lots of content online about the content of books.
Yeah.
And they're unbelievable to think that they went to print. And like, if one of them was printed, fine, but like a whole series of them, and they're just floating around out there, and they're so damaging.
And obviously, he, I suppose, got the in he did in terms of publishing because of his name from TV and so on. But then obviously they did sell, and I mean, publishers possibly to a degree just don't care. But like, if it's selling and it's selling a lot,
it's maybe the cover as well.
Where's the
Yeah, where
morals?
are they? Yeah, they're attractive looking. They look fun. They can see why somebody gangster granny. You totally pick that up and have a read of it. But it's only when parents kind of look through the message that he's sending to children.
And as well, I suppose those books like Gangster Granny, which are aimed at older kids, they are potentially reading them themselves. Do you know what I mean? It's not a book, it's not a picture book that you're necessarily sitting down and reading to your, as you said, 3 or 4-year-old. It's one that you're maybe giving to the 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old to read on their
You're
own.
kind of putting your trust, aren't you? You're putting your trust in the publisher that, okay, take this book to my child and have them read it.
Yeah, especially when it is so popular. Like my oldest would be just after turning 9 and he would read books himself, but we haven't got to the point of buying, we'll say, there's no David Walliams in the house. Just it's the way it worked out. And when I realised how problematic it was, I'm very glad of that fact.
Yeah, I mean, publishers take some responsibility, don't they?
Yeah, and I suppose there needs to be positive representation in books, and like there is such a gorgeous wealth of those kind of books around the place. So is that something that's important for you to stock in the shop, like, to know, books that have a wide variety of representation, whether it's race, culture, religion, all of it, diversity?
Yeah, absolutely. That is huge for us, and there are certain books that we would never stock, and I'm personally not a huge fan, for no particular reason, of books that are kind of TV inspired, like Peppa Pig and Bluey and that kind of stuff. Like they're I've no issue with them. They're available in other shops. We just don't have them. Not for any reason. I do see and appreciate that a child might enjoy watching Peppa Pig, and then to get them to transition onto books, that it might be the very next step. I feel like there are so many beautifully written books that deserve a space a little bit more. And likewise, that situation with David Walliams and J.K. Rowling, obviously J.K. Rowling's books are incredible. David Walliams got where he got because of his name more so, but it's hard and sad, isn't it, for authors who are working so hard, who are have natural ability, and they're not making the same position on the shelf. So,
and even we'll say J.K. Rowling books, when you look back at them as an adult, there are some things that she's very certain characters are portrayed very stereotypically, if that makes sense. They have a really stereotypical role in it. So even that, when you're looking back as an adult, outside of all of the other issues with her as a person, it feels lazy to a degree, or like you'd really question, like, where was she going with some of them. But almost like they're caricatures, I suppose, of like the Irish person or the black person or the Asian girl. Do you know what I mean? With the kind of the names she's given them and so on. But I suppose that's hindsight is a great thing to a degree. Like, my oldest boy loves them, but like they're all secondhand copies we have and have had for many years. And so like it's very bittersweet when he wants to listen to them, because I'm like, he absolutely loves the stories, but we have had the conversations about like that she is not a very nice person, and kind of touching on why.
And there's a new series of books, Pocket Potters. I don't know if you saw those. They're like maybe a younger age group, from I would say 5 to maybe 8, and they're like really lovely. They're really gorgeously done and everything. It's a difficult situation to be in, like, if this book is really nice and a child would really enjoy it, but the author is problematic. Like, what do you do in that situation? Kind of figure a way around that.
I know, and especially when there is the whole conversation around the fact that she is actively using her money for very bad things, supporting like very restricted women's rights, and I say that in inverted commas, that, and she is very open about, well, I have money from all of the things that I have earned, and this is what I'm spending it on. Like, that makes it very hard to support it,
for sure. And we're not short of books. There are other amazing books that we can put forward, and that's what we do. Like, we have our minimal stock of what we have, and I say we won't be restocking them, but we have so many other books we can put on the shelf instead of that. Diversity and humanity and all of that is a bit important to stock that. That's so important for us, and I try to encourage customers all the time to buy books outside of what they feel is relevant to their child. All the time you get somebody say, oh, my child, we're a same-sex couple, you have a book in that regard. I think every child should have a book that has same-sex couples represented in it. And we have books on everything. We have books on every kind of neurological condition. We have books on every kind of walk of life for my children to experience how other people live. And I think it's so important, and I wish, that would be my wish, I suppose, for children for the future, that they would be exposed to more books that show a life other than the life that they're living. I think that the trap that parents fall into all the time is thinking, oh, that little, girl she's into Irish dancing, I'll buy this Irish dancing book for my child. Whereas really they should be exploring outside of that.
And you've been a very strong voice on like social justice and stuff, particularly around Palestine and Gaza, and you've done some fantastic fundraisers too. Do you have many books in stock for anybody that's listening that might like to give these books to their kids about what's going on in Palestine?
Yeah, we do. We have a whole section on the website under humanity. But the most popular picture book we have would be A Map for Palestine. And we donate all the profits of that to humanitarian aid in Gaza. And then We Are Palestinian is another book for maybe older children to kind of get a feel for, the culture in Palestine. And I suppose I fell into that accidentally. I had no intention of branching out from books on Instagram, but found it all so traumatic. I feel like I needed to say, hey, can you see this as well? Can somebody else talk to me and tell me how they feel about this? Because I just feel like I need to talk about it, share what I can, as much as I can, probably most days, I would say. And I don't know what it achieves my one voice, but it is that thing of everybody's voice adds up. And if we don't stop talking about it, then, I don't know, maybe there's a fighting chance that something can be done. I mean, it's so far in now, nearly 2 years down the line, and it's all too late. Everything that can be done at this point is too late, but still can't give up with those children, the same as our children.
And I suppose what is heartening is that 2 years down the line, we are still talking about it. I suppose that's really important to remember, like even seeing what was going on in Italy in the last few days, all like they had the whole day of like a standstill for pretty much the whole country. It would have been very easy for everyone to be outraged about it for a certain period of time and then it taper off, which is what I'm sure was hoped would happen, that we would all just get sick of talking about it and sharing about it, and eventually it would become just something in the background. But people are still talking about it, and I know you have kind of referenced on your stories, like it has affected, I presume, your like reach on Instagram and stuff, how much your content is allowed to be seen, if we want to phrase it that way. Like,
I know it's not people making an actual decision to look away. I know it's not like they're like, oh, I'm done with her stories now. Today I've seen the book, they don't want to be the next bit. It isn't that. I know that, and it's so clear. Sometimes, I post something about my life. Usually the engagement is very high. People love to see what you're having for breakfast or where you're going for a walk for some reason. And then the book engagement is quite high as well. But if you post anything with a word or a flag or an image, it's just shot down. And I do know, sometimes I see a video, I'm like, going to hit share on this. And then I'm like, I know that's the whole day done. Nobody's going to see this. Nobody's going to be no orders. Going to be nothing to pack. It's a disaster for the business. But I'm like, I still feel that need to hit share on it. So I still do it. It hasn't been good for business, but who cares? I mean, if that was my child, would I care about business? And I know it's an easy thing to say, like, obviously we have staff and wages to pay and we want things to keep going and everything, but ultimately at the end of the day, nothing else matters, only the well-being of children around the world. And I just think it would be a bit hypocritical to have a children's brand and not care. Like, it's, as I say, there's certain books that we don't stock and we won't stock, but if we were just interested in profit, we would, because we know that they're big sellers. So it's the same with it, but it's not all about how we're going to maximize sales today. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, and there is, like, it is, I suppose, at the beginning, it's probably a hard line to cross when you're kind of going, oh God, this is going to affect my business. But as you said, like, when you get into the mindset that actually that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, when there are kids and people being killed on a daily basis in horrific numbers, that is what matters. Have you found any, I suppose, upsurge or kind of change in the amount, like the kind of books, we'll say, relating to that, or kind of, I suppose, kind of social justice in general that people have been buying, we'll say, from you in the last number of years?
And, there are other books as well about, speaking out about something that's not right. And I think that's really a powerful thing to teach your child, when something isn't right. And it has opened up that topic that how to approach that subject as something is unjust, that you can speak out and do something about it. So it definitely has been things that people do want to speak to their children about what's happening in Palestine. They don't want to do it in an upsetting way. So I think simple books like that and Palestine, very harmless, and still kind of making them somewhat aware that this little girl had to move out of her home and everything, which I think is so important, because they are going to have people in their classrooms who've had to leave their country. It's so important to be aware of all these things. But yeah, there has definitely been the usual books that always sell, and then I suppose we're very seasonal as well. starting school books were selling, and then Halloween started to creep in as well, and now Halloween and Christmas at the same time are absolutely flying. Some people just can't cope with me mentioning the word Christmas, but we have them on the website all year long. I swear to God, people buy them in February, March, April, all year long. So always. And I know I would myself if I saw a book that I was like, oh, I must add that to my Christmas collection. I don't want to think about it until December, so I'm just going to order it now. I'd say the last month in particular, every day of Christmas and Halloween in the same order. Yeah. It's great for us because we can see what's popular and restock it in time. But no matter what, it's always a panic by the end. You know, there's always last minute orders, and I'm always saying, oh, we'll cut it off now today. There's always last minute, like race to the post office to get orders out because people order them for last minute. Like, I need this one, or we're always panicking trying to restock certain ones that were very popular. So it starts like calmly enough, but it becomes insane in the next few weeks. We love it.
And I suppose one of the joys of being a children's bookseller is that a lot of the books are popular for a long time. Do you know what I mean? As in, they're like that you can have certain books in stock for months and years and they'll always sell. But how far in advance, is there a certain kind of time frame where you guys have to be ordering books for a particular season? You know, how far in advance would you be doing that?
Well, I was thinking about Halloween in June and July, I suppose. You can order your stock, and usually it would kind of come within a week in some cases. But there have been delays recently, definitely. But, you know, I suppose post and delivery people would talk about that as well. I think they've really ramped up that everyone's ordering online these days. So things have slowed down a little bit. And I suppose nearer Christmas as well, the pressure really rises for them as well. So you'd want to have your orders in well in advance. And then when it comes, you know, somebody unpacks it, stock takes it, and then has to put it on the website. And then when it's on the website, somebody has to share it on social media. Then when the order is placed, you know, or whatever, it's to be packed and posted. So there's a good bit in it. We try to be fairly organised. And at the very beginning, I remember another business saying to me in October, "You want to get ready for Christmas now?" And I was like, "What?" But now I totally know. Now we're ahead of ourselves always. So yeah, you kind of have to be. It's easier to leave things online all year. I know some people do take their seasonal stock offline, but we have it there all the time for people to pick up whenever they want. It's just easier that way.
And I suppose with kids' books, you can do that. I think it would be a bit stranger if it was grown-up books. And I say that again in inverted commas. Like, if I was seeing Christmas stuff in March on whatever, and looking for like a book myself, I'd be like,
I know. I don't have the point of promoting it now because I just think it's unfair on people. And I'm personally, I live in the present. I'm really happy with my life today. I don't think, oh, I can't wait this to happen next week. I'm so glad I don't live like that because, you know, it's hard to be always wanting the next thing, and then you get the next thing, you want the next thing. So I'm really happy in the present, but I'm conscious that other people want to be prepared. That's why we have it there. But I don't want to pressure people and think, you know, I never like that kind of strategy of marketing, you know, order this quick before it's all gone. Because, you know, it's hard enough on parents at the day. So it's here if you want this. That's kind of our approach.
We sidestep slightly because what you're talking about is very, I suppose, a holistic way of viewing life and being very mindful. Like, how, as a GP, how would you speak to people about like trying to incorporate that into their daily lives? I suppose particularly when the world is such a scary place at the moment. Is there any advice that you'd give to listeners about, you know, taking care of themselves and building mindfulness into their days as part of all of that?
Yeah. I suppose if you look at things as a whole, it's very overwhelming, isn't it? The world is a scary place, but if you just start small and think in your own home, I think we probably all give ourselves a little bit of a hard time for not achieving things and not doing things. And I tried to pull back that myself as well. I used to have a list every day of things I need to do, and now I still do have the list, but I have a list beside that where I write down what I did get done. This person did this, and you feel so much more satisfying to account for your time. Like, okay, those 2 hours didn't go away by themselves. I actually did get some things done. It just feels more rewarding. And I think, you know, go easy on yourself. Everything you get done in a day is a bonus, and maybe focus on small and in your own home. And you know, sometimes when I'm putting up content online that is a bit graphic, I cover it to give people the option, because I know that there are days myself, especially recently, where I just feel like I can't look. I just can't today be this child in that situation. So I suppose it's just there that, like, we should click on it, we should look, but we can't look away and they can't look away. But at the same time, I do, as when I'm working as a GP, I see people every single day that are really struggling to get out of bed themselves. So it's too much for them to have to deal with the world. You know what I mean? So take on what you can take on, and don't expect too much from yourself, I suppose, in pain.
So self-compassion and stuff. And do you see reading as a form of self-care then as well? Do you think that that's an important kind of a, not so much an escape, but just a way to take care of yourself and give yourself some downtime?
Definitely. With regards to children, like I was reading to my own children, I sometimes when we're having a day, those days when you're home from school and everyone's hungry and tired, and I take a, we're sitting down with reading the books, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, how do people do parenting without books? Because I couldn't, because everything is mellow and calm. They're just sitting there loving the story, and it's my tool for getting through every situation. So yeah, obviously that's hugely beneficial. So then I do think taking time for yourself to do what you enjoy is really important. And I have neglected that side of reading for myself personally, but I do other things, related to the business and whatever. I don't really feel like I need a lot of wind down time either. I am very mellow and kind of leveled most of the time, so I don't really feel like I need to wind down too much. But I feel like a unique perspective on life, and I see how fragile it is all the time, every single day. So I'm the most great person. And it's not, I didn't have to practice gratitude. I know some people do have to practice it, but it's inbuilt in me that, if somebody does something for me, I couldn't not say thanks. And I mean it from my depth of my core, my soul, that I appreciate that you've given your time to do something for me. Thank you. And I'm really big into manners and that kind of thing as well. But I'm so appreciative to be here today, to be alive. That is a privilege. It's not guaranteed any day. I'm so privileged that my children are in school and they're happy and well, and that we have, a home to come home to where we have food and food to enjoy. Like that is, I have won the lotto. And for as long as that continues, I'll be grateful. And, these things do change. Something happens. And yeah, I'm very aware of what can happen in life and how things can change very quickly.
That's made me a little bit emotional listening to that. As in, you're so, I can't even think of the right word now. Self-aware, obviously, as well. But you're very, very grounded and just. So you're very graceful about it all as well. Like you're not taking any of this for granted either. You have a successful business and a good profession, and you're like that could change any moment. Like
I find it very difficult to understand sometimes when people are being mean online or not being kind in general. I just don't understand that. I'm like, oh my God, you not know what can happen. Because I work with the guards and my phone is on, I'm kind of available to them 24/7 in a way, but I sometimes can't go and that's fine. But I often get calls of being a sudden death or being a suicide. And those situations, like that's real life. Nothing else matters. Taking your parking space or whatever, that they're all such minimal issues. I just don't want to sweat the small stuff ever because I've seen the big stuff.
And have you ever gotten any messages, we'll say, online like that were less than nice, especially in relation to, I suppose, being more vocal about what is going on in the world at the moment?
I can't remember what the name of it was. Like Jewish Voices, I think. I don't know, it's an online publication. They published a photo of me in an article to say this doctor supports Hamas, which, yeah. So that wasn't very nice. But anyway, like people will say what they say. I never ever worry about what anybody thinks. Might think, because you can really kind of follow that track in your mind as well and be like, oh my God, that person thinks I think like that. So you don't know what they think. Most people are too thinking about what time am I going to get home, how am I going to get this sorted. They're so busy wrapped up in their own lives, they don't even have time to think about you. So I'd never have any concern for that. I know I'm doing the best that I can do in my life every day without causing harm to anyone else. So I don't, if you were to live by everybody else's potential criticism of you, you'd never do anything.
I love your outlook. This is what I strive for. You are what I strive for as someone's outlook in life. Like, I love it. It's brilliant. And I think we need to take that on board. Yeah.
It's a natural thing. And if you don't have it, I think you can create it, maybe, and work on it. Or something you have to do then, kind of work into your routine every day, is to remind yourself just to live your own life and do your own thing. And I mean, with the shop as well, I know people have thoughts about what is that GP doing, children's bookshops. There's definitely some people who think that that's a bit of an odd thing. But again, I don't care because I'm happy.
I think it's really natural, actually. Like, it makes perfect sense for someone who works in the community and with families and who meets kids on a regular basis to want to help kids in a slightly different way.
I suppose. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure it was the vision that some people would have had for me for the future. But I can't live by that either.
Yeah,
if you're trying to,
that's their opinion, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Darren Garahy's father who she says to her, Darren, no one
Yeah.
gives a fuck about you. And he means that like in the nicest way, that like people are too self-absorbed. Like we can worry so much about what other people think, but at the end of the day, everyone's concerned about themselves and their own lives and all those different bits and pieces. So you're wasting time worrying about the minority that kind of would be thinking or judging or whatever.
Yeah. And I had a friend recently going on radio and she was asking me for advice about how, you know, she was really, really nervous about what people would think. And I was like, Jesus, if you all lose in 5 minutes. Does anyone remember what they listened to on the radio? You're listening to an interview and then you're listening to the song, then you're on to the next thing. And if I asked you what did you listen to before the song, I've got no clue. I was like, say whatever comes into your head. You can say the dumbest thing. Doesn't matter. Somebody else is going to say something worse later on in the day. Nobody's thinking about it. And like, if you do the most foolish, ridiculous thing in the whole world, people might talk about it for a day if you're lucky. But then after that, they're on to something else. I don't worry about any of those things.
Goals. Yeah, I don't worry about it too much, but when something does happen that is a bit negative, like if someone did send a message and they were being a bit critical of something, I feel devastated about it. I feel about it way more than I probably should, but I don't worry about it then on a day-to-day basis either. So I'm kind of extreme.
Somebody might send me a message like offering a different perspective or something. Actually, for example, I shared recently a coffee place in Limerick that my other half really recommends and he loves, and I just said that online, and then somebody wrote to me and they said, you know, we had a terrible experience there. We went in with our child, she was only a baby, and buggy, we were told to leave. So like, I don't feel like she's not criticizing me, she's just telling me her experience, and I actually meant to share it online because it's another perspective that is just as valid as the perspective I have, because they have no children policy, but obviously that shouldn't apply to a baby in a buggy. But yeah, I just think usually if somebody comes back at you with something like negative, often it can be just the day that they're having. You have to just appreciate that. And
yeah, and like you were kind of saying, like too, one thing I did learn as an adult, you know, something I came to the realization of is that two things can be true at the same time. You know, two perspectives can be true, and like you were saying, someone can share their perspective, which is very different to yours, and it could be equally as valid as yours, just once you're both doing it in a quite a respectful way and with genuine positive intent, you know. But I think a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking it's either one or the other. Like, one can't be true if the other is.
I could come on and be like, look at this David Walliams book, it's a bestseller, we're selling so many of them, children love them, they're so popular. All of that is true. But if I didn't know the other background information, if I hadn't seen, you know, content about that, then I wouldn't know, you know, a little bit more about it. So you can't know everything. You just have to kind of say what you think and learn. Like, let other people have their perspectives, and you might learn from them. Be open-minded.
That's it. Educating yourself and educating others and being open to being educated is so important. And obviously we're teachers, so we're very aware of that. But like, we'll say, I'm just curious, we'll say like in 20 years time, when we're all looking back at life now, is there anything you think that we'll say we do now as a society, as parents in particular maybe, that future generations will look back at and go, what were they doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, why do they pressure themselves so much about that? Or
I wonder,
how could they not see that was not great?
I wonder, I mean, obviously the situation in Palestine and what's happened over the last 2 years, I think we'll definitely look back on that and be like, oh my God, how did that happen? How did the really sad part as well is knowing that your children and my children are going to see that footage. And so they'll see what we saw and know what we did. And I don't post thinking, oh, you know, this is the right thing, my children will appreciate this in the future. Like, people have said that to me and I'm like, okay, yeah, that is true. But I'm doing what feels right for me now. But it's still, we will wonder how on earth that happens. I mean, it'll either go one way or the other. This will become the norm and we'll see it every day for the rest of our lives. Or else maybe things will improve and we'll come to some, you know, there'll be a conclusion that this was a horrendous thing that should never have happened and we can never let it happen again. So hopefully
we clearly don't learn from history, though.
We really don't learn, no. I know, but maybe I suppose I have to admit as well, again, what we were just saying, you can't know everything. I probably wouldn't have found it on the map for you a couple of years ago, and I didn't know that this kind of thing actually happens in countries all the time. I honestly did not think that anybody could harm a child, because it's not in my life. You know, if somebody pushed a child on the street, there'd be uproar, like shocking. To see that adult push that child, it would be the end of the world. So how could I possibly have known, unless I had spent time looking into it, which I didn't, so I didn't think it was things to look into. I just didn't know that we human beings treated children like that. Oh, it's a bit late for you to learn that lesson in life, but we know now.
I know, yeah. Well, hopefully, I really hope what you were saying earlier, you know, that it's going to go two ways. I really hope it is the conclusion. I do feel like there is more worldwide kind of outrage about it, and people who weren't talking about it before now are. But again, how far is it going to go before
Kind of terrifying.
someone is
We've
stopped?
seen the massive gatherings of tens of thousands of people on the streets, and to think that isn't enough, it's so scary. What is enough? What will stop it? Oh, children, thank
know.
all books that
And
we can
like-
like hide away, and that little bit of
I know.
blissful ignorance at night when your kids are going to bed. It's just so important.
Yeah. And do your kids think that everybody has like this bookshop in their house?
I suppose, I don't know, they do in a way. They're used to it. I feel like in a way I probably maybe exposed them to too many books. I sometimes wonder that, but then, you know, I'm feeling the massive benefit. Their vocabulary and their understanding of the world is really unbelievable, and they still get excited about a new book. You know, they look at this one, they still are really excited to see it. So, I suppose they do think that children do have this. It's their norm, like access to books, and it's really sad to think that some children don't. Like I do know that some kids go to school and it's their first time having experience with books, and that's a terrible thought.
Yeah, I know. And I know what you're saying about like wondering, are we oversaturating? Like I know that there's some figure that most kids own less than 50 books by the time they turn 5 or something. And like if you walked into my kids' bedrooms, like they have as many books as I do, if not more, you know. And when I had them both, everybody gave me books for the babies because they just know how much I love reading. So it's a lovely thing to pass on, I think. I don't think you can do too much of it.
Yeah, true. And I don't think sometimes people realize the value of owning books, like having them in your home, even if they're on the shelf and them, you know, they might just be a day that they'll go and pick it up. Or especially if there's a younger sibling, that younger sibling will come along later, and maybe the older sibling has learned to read in the meantime, they'll read it to the younger one. Or else they'll pick it up, you know, 6 months after they first read it and take a different meaning from it. I think it's so important to, especially, you know, a good book, to own it if you can and come back to it at different stages. Like a home full of books and stuff. I wish that for every child.
It's lovely. And like my middle child, he's 7, and so they go up to bed or whatever, and I come up to them, and the smallie especially, she's 5, she's, you know, obviously I still read to her, she's learning to read, but I come up later in the night then when they're all asleep, and my 7-year-old would regularly be after falling asleep and like his book is on top of him, and it's so sweet. Like he just reads away. Like I have to have an actual lamp on the bed next to, or not on the bed, on the locker next to his bed for him to read at night. And if he was very particular about how bright it had to be so he could actually read. And yeah, every night he's picked out a different book. And like some nights it could be he could have gone to get like a tractor magazine from my husband's locker, like in the bedroom, and he could be reading that. He's very willing to read everything, but it's lovely. It's such a lovely sight. And then I'm having to like carefully take the book away so I don't wake him, and
it is
flip to the side.
It's a personal, it's a choice for a parent. When I had my daughter, and we didn't know 3.5 years of beautiful book experience, for my little boy came along, and I wasn't wondering, I was like, will he be a bookworm? What if he's not into books? What will I do if he's not into books? But he adores them, and it's unbelievable because he's exposed to more advanced books that he's able for them. Something you kind of have to experience to understand. And I remember somebody saying to me before, because I made some comments online that this book is too advanced, or that the words are too complicated or something, and they said, no, like, read it anyway, and they might not understand that word, but then they will eventually. And, you know, sometimes he's nearly 3, and he would pick Isidore Moon, which is far beyond his ability, because he's used to sitting beside us while we're reading it together. He enjoys it. And you know, we could read a million books downstairs, like near bedtime, and go upstairs to bed, and I'd be like, bedtime stories? Like, we just had them downstairs. Like, it's not in the bed. Bedtime stories. He insists on more.
And even like you were saying, if there is vocabulary that they don't know, even for them to have the opportunity to go, what is that? What is that word? You know, it's lovely.
But even as teachers, like, I think we, you know, if we're testing students that are coming into us in first year, or even doing testing when they are in school, we do look at how they manage to figure out the comprehension of a word, even if they don't understand it. So like, do they look at the context of it in the sentence to see what it could possibly mean in relation to the rest of the paragraph or whatever? So like, doing things like that is giving them that opportunity to develop that skill.
Yeah, absolutely. It is unbelievable what they do work out themselves. And a lot of it is to do with exposure. You know, if they're used to reading books, they might pick up the same word in a different book and become more familiar with it that way. So I think, you know, I suppose I feel like at home, our options are play outside, play inside, or read. So you do whichever one of those you want to do. And, you know, they do a lovely mixture of all of them. So if there are books in your home and not much distraction, they will go for books.
Yeah. I love walking in and seeing like my toddler just like flicking pages, and he has no idea what the words are, but he just loves them. It's really cute. Like, and yeah, he's just happy out. He has no interest in the TV, I have to say. My eldest fella loves the TV, but he also loves books. But the youngest fella, he would gladly bypass the television for books any day of the week, which is gorgeous.
The brain which is happening there, you know, like looking at those pages and those pictures and imagining. Like it looks to us like they're just thorough, but there's a lot going on.
And again, that circles back nicely to the importance of the illustrations or the graphics in a kid's book. That is up to a certain age, that is what they're actually absorbing, like, and that is what they're getting their understanding from.
Like we shouldn't be handing over to machines.
So they're crucial. Like I know. I just noticed your top, Christina.
It's gorgeous.
Oh.
Love it.
That is so cute. So I noticed the skull first, and then I was like, "Oh, there's books under it." And then I was like,
reading books, of course. It's full Halloween mode on Genius Juniors. So you think sometimes I wonder myself, like with Halloween books, there can't be that many books like about what is a pumpkin, a ghost, like what else could there be? But the range of Halloween books, and there's so many, and they're all so good. It's so difficult because you need to own all of them. Then
I know, but at least you can have them in the shop and can read them and like
all the time. You read them and leave them back. Never. If I read a book, if I want it or need it or love it, I have to own it and have it. And terrible addiction.
But not the worst addiction, though.
As we always say, we could be doing a lot worse. We could be doing a lot worse with our time and money. So I suppose we've kept you for long enough. Is there anything, like, before we finish, we usually do a quick fire round, but is there anything that maybe we didn't touch on, Christina, that you would like to have a chat about or bring up?
No, I can't think of anything.
Are you happy to do a quick fire round with us? It's generally just like at this or that, and feel free to elaborate or just give us the answer, whichever you want. Perfect. Okay, so this or that, and elaborate if needed. Okay, so number 1, picture books or chapter books?
Oh, picture books till the day I die. It's usually categorized as age 3 to 5. And I remember when my daughter turned 5, I had this period of mourning. I was like, that's it, now we're done. Like, I don't even know experience, we just don't know. Like, she's 6.5 now, and we're still reading picture books all the time. And she does like chapter books like Isadora and Kitty and those kind of ones. But I thankfully, Laura, who works with me, she would be more into chapter books now at this stage. So I feel like she has the expertise in that area. I feel like I know 100% what I'm doing from the age of 6.5 and below. And then after that, I'm kind of going through that experience with her before I become more of an expert in those books. But picture books, I'll be reading them until the day I die myself. You know, a short story. Sometimes they're short, but they have a lot in them. You know, it might not be very much text, but the meaning and the chat that you can have after them is far more. Anyway, picture books.
Perfect. Number 2, bookshop evenings or GP surgery mornings?
Oh my God. How could you ask me that? I really love books. I'll say bookshop evenings, I think, because it's very joyful. And I'm just saying that from a personal sense, like everything about the bookshop is joyful. There's new books coming, they're gorgeous. You've got lovely messaging people saying they got their order, they're excited about their order. There's new books like just after being released. The joy of like if you get to unpack them, seeing new stuff put on the website, that's all joyful. Whereas like with GP, obviously there's a lot of sadness and hard situations. Now I really love my job and I really love what it can do for people. I feel totally privileged in a room with somebody who's telling me something they haven't told anybody else. You know, that they're trusting me with that and, you know, relying on me to help them through that situation. So I adore my job. And if I had to pick, so to the cruel question, I'd go with bookshop.
Sorry about that. I should have kept that to last and kind of build up to it. Number 3, to meet your favorite author or your favorite character?
My favorite author. It's actually funny that you say that because Shirley Hughes is my favorite author, and like Alfie would be one of my favorite characters. Obviously I can't meet Shirley Hughes, but I have been privileged enough to speak to her daughter, Clara Valeni. I had a video call with her for an hour before just chatting in general. I don't know why she agreed to talk to me, but she did. We just chatted, and I feel I feel like I'll be grateful for that forever. I got to speak to her, but I think Shirley Hughes, the way she managed to make very simple, mundane life experiences so interesting, and the way she worded them was just, she's magic. I've loads of other authors that I adore as well, but she kind of stands in my mind forever.
Excellent. That was lovely. That's really nice that you did get to talk to her daughter. Yeah. So I don't think most of us will never probably meet our favorite author. So it's nice to have some connection made. Number 4, audiobooks or print books? I think I know the answer to this.
Oh, print books forever.
Yeah.
So I have to say that as well, but I genuinely mean it. We don't have a Tony box. I don't feel like there's any need for us to have one personally because we read so much. But we do really enjoy audio stories in the car. But other than that, print books, absolutely, a million times over.
Very good. Number 5, would you prefer to prescribe rest or prescribe reading?
Prescribe reading, definitely. Rest is important. Obviously, you need to rest as much as you need to rest, but I suppose everyone is either doing the best that they can in that regard already, or they know they should be doing better. But with reading, I don't know if enough people know how important that is for a child. And we often talk about at the pregnancy and baby fair, I remember there was a dad walking past before, and he said, "Asher, what would we need books for? Baby's only born." And I was like, that's the only person I ever ran after, I'd say, in my life. I was like, yeah, come here. It needs to help you. I was like, and I wasn't trying to sell him books. I was like, it's so important to expose your child from books from a really early age. I'm not saying on the day that they're born, but certainly no harm then either. To have them in the home when the baby's young and everything, it felt like he had no concept. He thought that he shouldn't be reading books to children until they're, 3 and probably really able to comprehend the story.
Would you prefer fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction, I think. Yeah, fiction. I do really enjoy, our kind of factual books as well. I think there's time and place for them, but we definitely read way more fiction.
Would you prefer to love a book everyone hates or hate a book everyone loves?
Oh God, that's a good question. Probably love a book that everyone hates, because I feel like I would enjoy the challenge of trying to demonstrate the reasons that I love it and the reasons that they should give it a chance.
Very good. Nice challenge. Number 8. Do you think it's better for kids to recommend books to adults or adults to recommend books to kids?
Kids know the crack. All the time, I suppose we get asked every single day for recommendations on books, and often, we can make recommendations if it's a specific topic that they want. And that's, I suppose, the real exciting part of having the shop. We can't wait to have children come in and say, "Oh, I want that one." And that's it. And that's all it takes, is for a child to say that they like the look of the book, for them to want it and get it. They will read it, they'll engage with it, they'll take every benefit that they possibly can from the book. But if you buy a book and or recommend a book to a child that they're not feeling, that they're not really, it's very difficult to get them on board with this. So children know exactly what they want. And we see it again at Pregnancy and Baby Fair twice a year. It's the kids who come up to the stand and they grab a book and the parent buys it, and that's it. I mean, I bring books home to my children all the time that they didn't choose themselves, and I know what they like and everything. And obviously that's really, I get to enjoy that, and they love it as well. So there's benefit in both, but definitely children know what they want.
Would you prefer to read only one book a year, which is an amazing one, or as many average books as you want?
Well, I couldn't read one book in a year. I need to be I couldn't read one book in a year. As many average books, because I suppose that's kind of what got me into it, was when that box of books came on day one. The joy of opening it and seeing what came and going through them all, just unmatched. And even now, when stock comes and I ordered it, I'm still like, I wish I was the one that got to unpack it. And usually not. But there's just such joy in a new book, isn't there? That feeling of, a new book. Even if it's average.
Very good. And the last one, number 10, rereading a childhood favourite or discovering a brand new release?
That's really hard one as well. Discovering a brand new release, I'd have to say. I obviously, rereading a childhood favourite is really lovely, and there's obviously a lot of nostalgia in that. But as I say, we started off this conversation with kind of talking about how the books that were around in our days were more of, Enid Blyton and pixies and fairies and stories like that. But now they're more tailored towards benefiting a child in a mental sense. So I think discovering new releases now, because the books these days are just unparalleled. They're amazing.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
It's a good one there.
That brings us back around nicely to the start of the conversation. Nice way to end. Thank you very much. There are some of those I would not like to be answering myself, so I'm very glad I'm the one asking
I know.
questions. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really enjoy getting to know you better.
Oh, I really enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. Privileged to be on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Another Chapter of the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share to keep the conversation going. Thank you to Helen Becerra for the graphics, Bertie Buckley for the editing and Mark Neville for the mixing. Music is Make It Work by All Good Folks.